All right, now that I've taken a set of measurements, I'm going to explain to you and walk you through the alteration process or the thinking process that would go into this. Okay, so I measured Weston, but I'm actually going to make the shirt for my husband, Craig. And so I have already taken his measurements and I've put them all down this row. So body measurement, that's what I have right here. And this is where your any measurements that your pattern envelope gives you, you're going to put right here. But before I do that, I'm going to just look at the body measurements and I'm going to compare that with the chart on the pattern, back of the pattern envelope for the body chart they give you to be able to indicate to me what size we should go with. So here is the pattern that we're using. And here is the back of the pattern. And right up here, it shows you sizes. And it gives you some measurements here. So those measurements are body measurements. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to say, okay, Craig's chest was a 38. And if I look here at chest under medium, it says 38 to 40. So he falls right in line with that medium size. Okay, now the next thing it gives you here is the hip. And it's, if Craig's measurement is 40, and right here under medium it says 39 to 41. So he fits perfectly in the medium size for chest and hip. Now those are the only measurements that they give you that refer to a body to determine your size. So I'm going to go ahead with the medium. Okay? So once I've decided that, I'm actually going to write medium in here. Otherwise, sometimes we forget. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down below where it says finished garment measurements. So this, it means that if I were to make this pattern up exactly how it is, these are the sizes I would get. So when I look here, I look at the first one says back length from normal neckline. And it has shirt A through D. And that's what we're making. So I go down the medium column across here and I have 30 3/4. So that is the length. So I'm going to go over here to my length and under pattern I'm going to write 30 3/4. All right. Then I'm going to go down to the next one. It says measurement at chest line. So again, the first one's the vest. I don't want that. I want the shirt. That's the next one, and it says for the medium 47. So now I'm going to come up here to chest and I'm going to write in 47. Okay, the next thing it gives me is measurement at hip line. Okay, so for the medium it's 46.5, and that's right here at the hip. So I now have 3 measurements that the pattern has given me. Now I still need some other measurements, so I'm going to have to now measure the pattern to get the rest of these measurements. Okay, so let's go to the first one, sleeve length. Okay, now on the sleeve length, first I want you to notice that I have taken all of my pattern pieces out of the envelope and I have cut them apart. I have not cut along the little lines because I don't need to do that yet. I've just cut them apart from each other. So to do the sleeve length, you actually need 3 patterns. Okay, we need center back, or I should say, I'm sorry, we need the yoke because we started measuring at center back. So I need the yoke that sits on top of at the shoulders. Then I'm going to need the sleeve. Okay, the next thing I'm going to need is the cuff. All right? So here is the cuff. Okay, so if you think about it, when I measured for the sleeve length, I started at center back and I went straight over to the shoulder, and then I came down the sleeve, and then because we have a cuff, this is going to be added to that. So let's measure all 3 of those. Okay, so the first thing is, here's my center back. Now I'm looking at the medium, so I'm going to mark 5/8 down from the medium, which is right here, because that's where my seam line will go. And then I'm going to go straight over to the dot at the shoulder for the medium size. So I'm going to go straight over to this medium, and I'm just going to put my thumb on that measurement. That was 9 3/4. So I've got that measurement. Rather than writing all three down separately, I'm actually going to measure them all at once. And if I just use my thumb to mark where it is on the tape measure, I can just pick it up where I left off. So now I'm going to come to the dot here at the top of the shoulder, because this dot connects to this dot right here when I put my sleeve in. So now I come over here to the medium, and I'm just going to go straight down. Now when I measured Weston, you'll notice I had him bend his arm. That's because when I measured the person, I want to get the longest measurement I need, but when I measure the pattern, I can go ahead and just do a regular straight measurement, knowing that I'm already building in a little bit of ease if his arm was just at rest. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and I'm actually, before I do that, I'm going to mark 5/8 here so I know where to stop, because again we measure to the seam. While I'm at it, I'm going to measure 5/8 on the cuff. I'm going to take off 5/8 from the side that gets sewn to the sleeve, and 5/8 from the outer edge that will be sewn to the cuff and turned under. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here now. I was at 9 3/4 at my medium, and I'm going to go straight down to my 5/8 seam line, put my thumb there, and now I'm going to bring my cuff over, and I'm going to measure the cuff between the two seam lines. So right here to here. And I have 33 3/8. So I'm going to come back to my sleeve length, and I'm going to write that in under the pattern. That's what my pattern measures. So that means if I do nothing to this sleeve length, that's what it's going to be. Okay, the next thing is I need the neck size. Now the neck size, what you're going to do is you're going to take the neck band. Okay, this is the part that goes around the neck. And I'm going to go from center front over to center front. Okay, and so I'm just going to, where the buttonhole is and center front is, I'm going to go straight across. All right, now you might say to yourself, maybe we should do it right along this seam line that sits along the neck. But I'm just going to go straight across because, again, I want to get kind of the shortest measurement on the pattern and use that with the longer measurement on the person, so it builds in just a little bit of extra there. So from here straight across, it's 16.5. So I'm going to write that in my chart here. Okay, the next thing is the shoulder width. Now, I'm making this for my husband, and he's not, he's kind of a skinny guy, tall and thin, and he does have broad shoulders, so I want to make sure, but they're not super broad, so I'm kind of thinking we'll probably be okay, but just to be sure, I'm going to check. So I'm going to go from the medium here at the shoulder, and I'm going to go up along the center back. Remember how I went up along the neck? And I'm going to kind of go up along here and go right over here to the medium, and I have 19 3/4. So I'm going to write that in. Okay, and then the bicep, that's my last one. Okay, so on the bicep, I am going to go right along here, and I'm going to mark off, in this corner I'm going to mark off 5/8, and I'm going to mark off 5/8 in this corner. Okay, and I'm going to measure from this. Well, the bicep line on a pattern goes from corner to corner, but when I actually measured, we came down a few inches. So you know what? I actually want to come down a few inches. So I'm going to go to this notch. Okay? And so I can even kind of compare those. So if I go to the first measurement, right at where that seam is, I've got 19.5. Then if I come down a little bit, I've got 18 5/8. So I'm going to go with the 18 5/8 because I did come down a little bit from where the shirt is. So I think we'll be okay to go right there. So that's 18 5/8. Okay. And I'm going to put that right here for the pattern. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now look at my pattern. I'm going to say, okay, Craig's chest was 38, the pattern measures 47, That's 9 inches of ease. So I put that kind of in parentheses. I don't think he wants it quite that full, but that is average for a very traditional cut men's shirt that has extra room. And it's usually like 8 inches, 9 inches. So that's kind of on the, a little bit on the more traditional side of being a little bit fuller. Then I'm going to look down here at the hip, and Craig was 40, the pattern was 46.5, so that's 6.5 measurements. 6.5 inches, I'm going to put that in parentheses, and then over on the other side, I'm going to look at this and say, well, what do I think he likes? Now, length we know has no ease. For the back length, we just do it, we do the exact measurement we have. And the sleeve length, no ease. Now, on the neck size, even though I measured it with 2 fingers inside for extra, that's the ease for wearing. But I'm going to add a little bit of sewing ease here because we have many layers and they get turned back on themselves. And with that turn of cloth, we often lose a little bit of the measurement. So I'm going to add 1/4 to 3/8 here, depending on the thickness of my fabric. Okay, then on the shoulders, 17.5 is what Craig was, and the pattern was 19 3/4. And because the sleeve actually hangs down past the shoulder, 1 inch to 2 inches, if I have 1 inch on each side, that would be 19.5, and I'm fairly close, so I'm not going to do any alterations there. All right. Bicep, here is 14. We want about 4 inches of ease. We're at 18 5/8. I'm not going to do anything here, but I am going to make a little notation here to pin fit. And what that means is before I sew that seam up, I'm going to try it on Craig, and if he wants to take a little out, then I'll just pinch it out and sew and re-sew that seam. Okay, now let's go up to the top here. I have got 9 inches of ease. Now, he does like a traditional dress shirt, but that's a lot. I would like to take 3 or 4 inches out, but I'm not sure exactly if he'd like that. So I'm going to start with 2. I'm going to take out 2 inches. It will end up with 7 inches of ease, and then a little notation here that I'm going to pin fit this. If he wants it a little more fitted, then I can take a little bit out on that seam. I'm not going to worry about the waist because, like I said, he's very thin, so I don't have to worry about extra there. I'm going to look at the hip, and they're giving me 6.5 inches of ease. I'm going to take out 1.5 inches and leave 5 inches of ease, which is still a fair amount of ease. And then I will look to see, I'll pin fit that again to see how he likes that. Okay, length. Okay, he is 33.5. The pattern is 30 3/4. I need length. Craig happens to be 6'2", and as we know, patterns are not usually made for men that tall. So I'm going to add 3 inches, which will give me 33 3/4, and that extra quarter will just be great to have a teeny bit extra. Okay, let's look at the sleeve length. Craig needs 35.5. The pattern is 33 3/8. So I need 2 inches and, let's see, and probably 1/8. Okay, I'm going to actually put in 2 1/4 just to give me a tiny bit extra. So I have 2 1/4 there. Neck size. Okay, here Craig needs 15.5, and that will give him a little bit of ease. Like I said, he's quite thin for how tall he is. If I add 1/4 to 3/8, now the fabric I'm going to use is not super heavy or thick, and so I'm going to just go with the 1/4 inch. So that would give me 15 3/4. The pattern measures 16.5. If I make this up, it's going to be way too big in the neck. So 15 3/4. Take that measurement away from 16.5, and you get minus 3/4. Okay, if my math is correct. Okay, then right here we decide I don't need any. So here's the alterations I'm going to do on this pattern. Okay, now remember our rule is we do length first, and then we do circumference, and then we do any diagonal ones we have to do.